Hey, so I'm just gonna read out this thing that I wrote today. Which was just like a few pages, and it's only really small paper, so it's not that long. But you know, I'm just gonna read it out because I thought it was quite interesting. It's just basically how I see people and just my perspective on the world in some ways. So I will start. People are strange. Life is strange. People, or perhaps a better way to say it would be a person is to be strange. The two are almost synonymous. Why do I think this? It is just the way I experience myself, others, and the world in general. We like music and art. We piece together sounds in order to formulate sentences, which we then use to convey a whole multitude of different messages. We try to figure things out. We want to know about the world around us. We want to understand other people, and we may wish for a far-fetched, simple explanation. Any simple explanation of people, or anything seemingly complex for that matter, will inevitably lead to negation. Perhaps we are willing to make that sacrifice, though. Rather than really getting to know a person, or with a posteriori interaction and observation, we find it much easier to pin labels onto individuals, such as boring, fun, helpful, selfish. In my case, the chosen word I use to collectivize all people and things is strange. People are strange. That is an unverifiable and unfalsifiable theory. Nothing anyone can say or do will change this fact. I have attributed to reality and everything within it. It is probably the truest statement I have ever uttered. It encompasses all behaviours, all phenomena, everything. This situation is strange. Me sitting at this table in this little place I like to call work, listening to upbeat soul music, unconsciously absorbing the information which is being fed to my senses and mind. Such a strange, strange moment. What has driven me to write this piece of text? What has led me to think in this way? There are things I could sit for. These are things I could sit for hours trying to figure out, and would probably leave with less epistemic certainty than I started with. Perhaps I would have to think for weeks, months, or even years until I could hold absolute conviction about this. My writing's really bad. About the causal relations between reasons and effects. Then again, I can't be sure about that. I would have to first take the adventure, and perhaps the goal will change. I may think I am merely setting out to find the big whys, but along the way I could stumble across new whats, whens, whos, and hows. The pursuit of answers may lead to more questions. I shouldn't assume that I understand the territory of which I have yet to tread. As I get to know it, I will also get to know the method of which I must use in order to tackle it in the best way possible. However, as chances have it, I will probably also get to know bad ways of acting in this new way of life. Perhaps there will be an overlap between past situations and yet to be situations. And my belly just rumbled at the end there. Yeah, so I just did that, and then I drew a strange picture, which is pretty strange. Don't know exactly what it is, but there's a face in there, and then there's all these weird lines and stuff, and then this plant type thing at the bottom, which I don't know, it's just a drawing. I've been doing a lot of drawing recently and a lot of writing, and predominantly today with the writing, and recently, but predominantly today with the writing, and then the drawings just been continuously occurring. I've had a lot of things that I've needed to just get out of my head in the forms of drawings, just urges to sit and draw, and it doesn't necessarily matter what it is, or a lot of the time it's actually just unplanned, just completely automatic drawings, and sometimes I've had a theme in my head that I've sort of tried to depict through artwork. So, for example, human nature and human sexual nature was which sort of linked to an aspect of the philosophy course I did this year. But it was a topic, yeah, it was a topic I did this year or last year. I can't remember exactly. And it was just about Freud and how he thought everything was to do with sex. So I thought I'll do some pictures attempting to depict human sexual nature, and there were some of them were pretty messed up actually. I actually set myself a challenge of trying to draw the most messed up picture possible, or it's not like the most messed up picture possible, but it's definitely a couple of them were uncomfortable to look at. So I think I did succeed in that domain, if I can say that. But yeah, I probably won't show those on this video anyway, because I think they would have to be age rated. But yeah, I also drew a picture today of just the thing over there. So it was just like a quick sketch, and it's like not finished, but it's just like a life drawing, because I'd already do a lot of that. But yeah, it's just that over there. I don't know if it's actually in view, but yeah. So I was just trying to depict that in some ways, and I do that. I really enjoy drawing. And I was actually questioning as to whether I've chose the right course at university in doing philosophy as opposed to doing art. But art's just something I can do along the sideline, and I can gain philosophical knowledge and also apply that to art, which is something I actually did with my A-levels. So philosophy actually tied into art very nicely. But I was looking at the university choices I've selected and the courses, and the universities I've chosen, they don't actually offer a joint philosophy and fine art or any sort of art related course in like a dual degree. So I don't know, but anyway, I'm just gonna end up doing philosophy, and but like you can do like philosophy of art, like so you can do like aesthetics and stuff like that, which is some of the modules, but it's not actually creating art. It's more like analyzing art philosophically, which could be really interesting because I think that would tie nicely into my own interests, and yeah. But I don't I think I'm definitely going to do philosophy. I've already applied, and I've already sent off my application. I do really enjoy philosophy. It does make me a little bit crazy sometimes thinking about things, and I get a little bit too deep. But it also changes my perspective on the world. And like today, for example, I was at work, and I was doing like ironing stuff and like on the big roller machine. And so I thought I listened to some like Ludwig Wittgenstein philosophy, and obviously it wasn't him talking, but it was like I listened to this interview between these two men. I can't remember exactly what they were called, but they were talking about Ludwig Wittgenstein's early work and then progressed on to his later work, and then I listened to a Radio 4 podcast about Wittgenstein, and that was also really interesting. And most of it was just recapping what I'd already done at A-level, and I'd also already listened to those two YouTube videos before when I was actually doing A-level and studying Wittgenstein. So it was nice to recap him, and I was writing about him yesterday and thinking about him. So I thought, you know what, I sort of want to learn more about this guy and just get a bit more to grips with his philosophy. And obviously this was a man who said that anyone who thought they understood him didn't understand him because no one could understand him. Maybe this is a representation of his own arrogance, or perhaps this is just him aligning his own views with his actual philosophy. So it's like, well, he believed that language was ambiguous and that we all have different ways of life, and that there isn't really much overlap between those ways of life, or at least there is overlaps, but we have to actually fully immerse ourselves into a specific language game in order to be able to understand that way of life or that language game, and then we can only criticise that language game once we're actually understanding it. So maybe Wittgenstein thought he was playing a completely different language game that no one else was able to enter into, therefore no one understood what he was talking about. And this almost maybe this was him trying to distance himself from criticism, which you could see that, but you know, he's still open to criticism because like we can still understand what he's saying, and maybe we don't definitively understand what he was saying from what he actually intended his work to mean, but you know, I think we can derive conclusions by having discussions about his work. Well, I don't know if he would agree with actually having discussions about philosophical topics, because then what if we all have our own different ways of life and our own language games? Even he did recognise that language was a social thing, so that it has to be almost like that. Well, basically, he said there's no private language, so that implies that there isn't a language game that applies just to one individual. So if you have your own language, it's not actually a language or a language game, because you've got to actually be able to use it within a social setting, and people actually have to be able to understand it and have a dialogue with you in order for your language to be, I guess, meaningful. Otherwise, it's not really a language, because the purpose of language is to convey something to other people. Maybe that's what he thought anyway, I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, I need to do philosophy. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm doing right now. So there's no escaping it. But it did make me feel pretty weird after actually like listening to him for a while. Like I just that's after that, like I just was like in a different mindset, and I was thinking, whoa, people are really strange, and I was just seeing the world in a slightly different way, which is what happens when you get introduced to like certain philosophical ideas, or you immerse yourself within a philosophical landscape for a certain period of time, and then try and step out of it, out of the abstract, back into the real world, and function as a human being. And it can be kind of difficult to do that, because you've got to really change your mindset in order to be able to come back to reality, I guess you could call it. Even though it is reality, it's just a different sort of reality. So yeah, anyway, thank you for watching.